It's funny, whenever the topic of technology and government control comes up at a dinner party.
Which is happening a lot more these days.
Right. It feels like it's happening all the time. But almost everyone's mind, it just goes to the exact same place. It's always that one specific episode of Black Mirror. You know the one I mean?
Yeah, nosedive.
Yeah.
With all the pastel colors and the reading.
Exactly. Nosedive. We have this image just burned into our minds of some, giant sci-fi dashboard where every citizen has a single fluctuating score floating over their head.
Right.
You smile at the barista, ding, points go up. You jaywalk, buzz, points go down. And if your score drops too low, well, sorry, you can't rent the car. You can't book a flight. It's terrifying, but it also feels a little bit distant, right? Like really good science fiction.
It feels cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the first trap we all fall into.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality of what's happening, especially with China's approach to governance and AI, it isn't a movie. It's so much more bureaucratic, so much more mundane. And because of that, it's arguably much, much more powerful.
And that is exactly what we are cracking open today. We're unpacking this fascinating and honestly slightly chilling article by Johan Steyn called Exporting the Obedience Machine, China's AI Governance in Africa. And let me tell you, that title alone, The Obedience Machine, it stopped me in my tracks. But Steyn isn't writing a horror story. He's writing a reality check.
He is. His whole point, his central thesis, is that we need to stop looking for a single score and start looking at what he calls the mesh.
Mesh.
Yeah. It's not about one number that defines your worth. It's about a massive interconnected web of databases, compliance rules, algorithms. And the really scary part isn't just that it exists in China. It's that this whole model of governance is being packaged up, branded as smart city solutions or efficiency tools, and then exported globally.
Especially to Africa. And that really is the mission for this deep dive. We want to try and understand how AI is shifting from being this tool of innovation, which, we love, to becoming a lever of social control. We really need to figure out what happens when this high-tech machinery lands in countries that might not have the strongest institutions to keep it in check.
Right.
So lay it out for us. What is the obedience machine if it isn't just a scoreboard?
To really get it, we have to move from this idea of human bureaucracy to what Steyn calls automated compliance. So let's, strip away the sci-fi myths and look at the actual architecture.
Okay.
Steyn points out that the system in China has evolved. It used to be these really dramatic public pilots shaming people on giant billboards for bad behavior.
Right. The wall of shame approach. I remember reading about that.
Exactly. But that's not the main game anymore. It's gone quiet. It's moved into the back office.
Yeah.
The evolution has been towards administrative standardization. So think less about public shaming and more about data integration. Steyn describes it as a mesh that stitches together all these different layers of your life that until now used to be separate.
I really like that analogy, the mesh. It sounds less like a hammer and more like a net, So what are the threads? What's actually being stitched together?
Well, think about it like 4 distinct buckets of data. First, you've got identity systems, so who you are. Second, transaction trails, where your money goes. Third, surveillance feeds, where you physically are. And fourth, regulatory records, things like court judgments, sector-specific compliance lists.
Yeah, and in the past, those were all islands. The court didn't really talk to the bank, and the bank definitely didn't talk to the traffic camera.
Exactly. If I got a parking ticket, my mortgage lender didn't instantly know about it. Or if I was late on a tax payment, it wouldn't stop me from getting on a train.
Yeah.
Those systems were siloed. But the obedience machine connects them. It creates this digital layer where risk analytics follow you across different regions and services. And here is the key mechanism Steyn highlights. It is not just about assigning you a score. It is about automating access.
Access to what specifically?
Everything. Access to finance, procurement opportunities, mobility, buying a train ticket or a plane ticket, and even essential services. So if you're flagged in one part of the mesh, let's say for a regulatory violation, the system can automatically restrict your access in a completely different part, like applying for a government contract or even just traveling.
Wow. That is profound. It turns the government into a gatekeeper that doesn't even need a human guard at the gate. The gate just locks itself based on data from a totally different department.
And that's why the branding is so clever, so effective. They don't sell this as authoritarian control.
No.
They sell it as market order, good governance, or trust. And to be fair, in a really chaotic environment, market order sounds very appealing.
That's the disconnect right there, isn't it? The discrepancy between what it is, an obedience architecture, and how it's framed. It's framed as just a way to make society work better, which of course leads us to the big question. Why on earth would other countries buy this? I mean, are leaders really sitting there thinking, you know what? I really want to oppress my people today?
No, and this is where we have to be really nuanced. Steyn makes an incredibly important point here. These governments, especially in Africa, they aren't necessarily buying these systems because they want to be dictators. They are buying them because they are drowning.
Drowning in what?
In administrative chaos. Just think. Fraud, tax leakage, rampant crime. Imagine you're a government minister in a developing nation. You're losing millions in tax revenue because you can't track transactions properly. You've got ghost workers on the government payroll. You have no idea who is actually delivering on government contracts.
Okay, yeah.
And then someone comes along and says, hey, we have an integrated digital system that offers automated compliance. We can fix all your leaks. That is incredibly tempting.
It sounds like a lifeline. I mean, it's the ultimate sales pitch. We can clean up the mess, we can make it efficient, and honestly, who doesn't want efficiency? If it stops tax cheats, that sounds like a win for everyone.
It does. For budget-strapped nations, that promise of efficiency is almost impossible to turn down. But Steyn argues that the adoption won't look like a simple copy-paste of China.
Right.
Other countries aren't going to adopt the whole system overnight. They'll adopt it piece by piece.
Just the useful bits. A smart city traffic system here, a digital ID system over there.
Correct. But here is where we need to really deep dive into the role of AI. Because once you have all these pieces, AI completely changes the game from simple record keeping to prediction.
Prediction. Okay, let's unpack that. How does prediction change the dynamic? It's not just about catching the bad guys anymore.
Well, once your whole society is treated as a data set, the government can use AI to predict who is high risk, who is likely to default on their taxes, who should be inspected by health and safety, who should be blocked from a service. The term Steyn uses for this is risk-based regulation.
Risk-based regulation? That sounds so boring. It sounds so neutral, like something you'd read in an insurance pamphlet.
And that's the danger. It sounds neutral. It sounds like common sense. But Steyn warns that the ethical stakes are absolutely massive. Because if an algorithm decides you're high risk, you get inspected, you get blocked. But what if the model is wrong?
Right. Who gets harmed? And if the computer says no, who do you call? There's no one there.
Exactly. When that decision is automated, the burden of proof suddenly shifts to the citizen to prove the machine is wrong. Right. And that is a very, very difficult position to be in.
It's like that computer says no sketch from Little Britain, but for your civil rights. You're trying to argue with a black box that has already decided you're a risk.
Precisely. And this isn't just about software either. We have to talk about the hardware. Steyn brings up this really interesting concept of the token factory and the physical infrastructure.
Yeah, this part was fascinating. He argues that control of data centers, cloud stacks, and the AI supply chains, that's now strategic terrain. It's not just about who writes the code anymore, but who owns the servers the code runs on. Why does that matter so much?
Because we are in an era where building massive compute and cloud capability is absolutely essential for AI. Steyn calls this the token factory era,
right,
which refers to the tokens generated by large language models, but it really represents the sheer processing power you need. If a country controls the data centers and the GPU supply chains, they have incredible geopolitical leverage. It's like controlling the oil refineries in the 20th century.
And this isn't just hypothetical leverage. Steyn cites a really disturbing example from an Associated Press investigation that involved Nepal. Can we walk through that? Because that really solidified the danger for me.
It's a very stark example. The investigation showed how surveillance technology was used in Nepal specifically to monitor and silence Tibetan refugees.
Wow.
Now just think about the dynamic there. You have a technical system, cameras, monitoring, which was ostensibly bought for public safety. Nepal bought it to manage their cities. But riding on top of that technical system are cross-border political interests.
So the technology wasn't neutral at all. It was a tool being used to enforce the political will of a neighbor, China, in this case, but inside Nepal's own borders.
Exactly. It just illustrates that these systems are permeable. And this leads to this huge issue of data sovereignty. Steyn brings this up for South African readers, but really it applies everywhere. If your country's data is being processed in a foreign cloud, or by foreign vendors, who actually holds the power?
That's a chilling thought. If the servers are in Beijing, or even if they're just owned by a company that's beholden to foreign laws, does the local government really have any control? What happens if there's a diplomatic spat? Do they just turn off the cloud?
Well, Steyn references China's huge cloud expansion and localization strategies. It's a major debate. When you outsource your infrastructure, you might just be outsourcing your sovereignty. You become a client state in a very literal digital sense.
Which brings us directly to the implications for Africa. And Steyn uses a phrase here that really stuck with me. He says the risk isn't just digital colonization in that dramatic sense we think of. It's dependency without accountability.
That is the absolute core of his warning, dependency without accountability. I mean, you become dependent on a complex system that you cannot fix, you cannot audit, and ultimately you cannot control.
He talks about the institutional muscle you need to handle these systems. You know, it's one thing to buy a Ferrari, it's a whole other thing to know how to fix the engine when it breaks down.
Or even to know if the engine is rigged to only drive to certain locations. Steyn asks these really critical questions. Can the local government actually audit the code? Can they govern the vendor? Can they provide redress when the system fails? If the answer to those is no, then you have a massive capability gap.
It reminds me of the early days of the internet where people just clicked, I agree on everything, because who reads the terms and conditions? But here, it's entire governments clicking, I agree, on behalf of millions of their citizens.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And this is where he completely flips the script on how we think about buying things.
Yeah.
He says that procurement discipline is now a civil liberties issue.
That is such a heavy responsibility for a procurement officer. I mean, usually procurement is just about the bottom line. Did we get the best price? Did we follow the tender process?
Steyn is saying, no, that's not enough anymore. Procurement is now about human rights. If you sign a contract for a smart city surveillance system without understanding the privacy implications, without securing the rights to audit the data, you aren't just wasting money. You are potentially signing away the civil liberties of your citizens. You are importing a governance model that's just disguised as a tech product.
It changes the whole job description. You're not just an accountant anymore. You're a guardian of the Constitution.
It might sound dramatic, but it's true. Because once that infrastructure is laid, the cameras, the databases, the cloud integration, it is incredibly hard to rip out.
So we've got this machine. It offers efficiency, but it comes with a leash. And usually, the people buying it don't realize how short that leash is until it's way too late. That feels overwhelmingly bleak. Is the suggestion here just don't use the tech, go back to pen and paper?
No, and Steyn is very, very clear on this. We have to move past the rhetoric. It's too easy to just be anti-China or anti-tech, but that doesn't solve anything. The technology is here. The incentives to use it, cost, efficiency, order, those are real. The question is, how do we handle it?
Okay, so what is the antidote? If we shouldn't panic, what should we do?
Steyn calls for democratic competence.
Democratic competence. I like that. It sounds actionable. What does it look like in practice, though?
It means disciplined procurement. It means enforceable safeguards and transparent auditing. It means reading the fine print. Steyn has this great line. He says, freedom will increasingly be protected or lost in the fine print. That is a bumper sticker for the 21st century right there. Freedom is in the fine print. It's not on the battlefield anymore. It's in the terms and conditions.
It really is. And to make this practical, Steyn suggests a checklist, a set of questions that every citizen and every government official should be asking before a smart system touches schools or transport or policing.
Okay, let's actually run through this checklist, because I think you, our listeners, should literally write this down. If you hear your city is installing smart surveillance or AI traffic management, these are the questions you need to be asking. What's number one?
Number one is just fundamental transparency. Can I see what the system says about me? This is basic. If you can't see your data, you are a subject, not a citizen. You have to know what the mesh thinks it knows about you.
Okay, question two. Can I challenge it quickly?
Redress. This is where the rubber meets the road. If the system says you're a criminal or a tax evader and you're not, how long does it take to fix it? Days, years, never. In so many automated systems, the answer is just, we'll get back to you, and they never do. Right. Question three, is there an independent appeal path?
This is so crucial. If the appeal just goes back to the same algorithm or the same department that bought the algorithm, you're just stuck in a loop. You need a human, independent arbiter who actually have the power to override the machine.
Question four, is the decision explainable or is it a black box?
Yeah, this is the huge explainability problem in AI. If the answer is, we don't know why the AI rejected your loan, it just did, that is not acceptable in a democracy. A government has to be able to justify its decisions. The algorithm said so is not a justification.
And the last one, Are we building local capability or are we just outsourcing power?
And that goes right back to the dependency issue. If you are outsourcing the brain of your government, you're outsourcing the power that comes with it. You need local experts who understand the code, not just salespeople who understand the pitch.
It's such a powerful list. It really shifts the focus from, is this technology cool, to, is this technology safe for democracy?
Exactly. And that is the real nuance Steyn brings to this. He isn't saying we should smash the machines. He's acknowledging that automated governance is coming. The technical rails exist. The incentives are there. The danger is what happens when you combine that powerful technology with fragmented institutions and, frankly, political incentives.
It's almost like the technology just amplifies whatever is already there. If you have weak oversight, the technology will exploit that. If you have strong democratic values, maybe you can harness it, but you can't just plug it in and hope for the best.
No. Hope is not a strategy. Competence is the strategy. We have to understand that we are moving into a world of automated compliance. The rules are going to be enforced by algorithms, and those algorithms can be exported across borders.
It's so interesting, isn't it? When we think about globalization, we usually think about, shipping containers or fast food franchises. But Steyn is talking about the globalization of how rules are enforced.
That's a great insight. It's the export of a specific administrative philosophy,
Yeah.
and it's baked into the code. And if you don't have the democratic competence to decode it, you end up importing values you might not even agree with.
That is the reality check.
Yeah.
We started this deep dive talking about Black Mirror and sci-fi scores, but we've ended up somewhere so much more grounded and, honestly, much more urgent. It's about contracts and databases and just the ability to ask why.
It is. It's about realizing that the smart city isn't just about convenience. It's a governance model. And if we don't understand how that model works, we just become passive participants in it.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this final thought. Steyn's article makes it really clear that efficiency is the selling point. It saves money. It catches criminals. It stops tax fraud. I mean, who doesn't want that?
We all want that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
Yeah.
to live in a chaotic, unsafe society.
Exactly. But here's the question for you. If your government bought a system tomorrow that could perfectly predict your trustworthiness and save billions in tax money, would you applaud the efficiency? Or would you be terrified that there's no button to press when the machine inevitably makes a mistake?
That is the ultimate trade-off. Where is the line between a smart city and a surveillance state? The answer usually lies in whether or not you can read the code.
A huge thank you to Johan Steyn for this incredible analysis. It's really given us a new lens to look at the smart world that's growing all around us.
Absolutely. It's a conversation we need to keep having, especially as these tools get smarter and faster.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay critical, and always, always check the fine print. We'll see you next time.